If you have followed the rules but feel unsatisfied with where that's gotten you, this podcast is for you.
We'll help you learn how to reach your goals through creativity, intuition, and flow.
Welcome to the Flow into Authenticity podcast.
Hello.
Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Does everyone have enough coffee today? Oh, you don't drink coffee? Oh, no.
Who doesn't drink? Leslie doesn't?
I drink coffee.
Oh, wait. Esther,
doesn't?
are you
Esther,
drinking
you're
coffee
kind of
these
on
days?
and off coffee, yeah.
Oh, no. I've been drinking
been
coffee. No, I just decided last year of my hell year, perimenopause hell, that there's no way in hell that I can't not drink coffee. So I've given up on the giving up of coffee.
Oh my gosh.
Yay! I just read like a meme that shows you what for your astrological sign, what you think is your identity, and mine was black coffee. And I was like, yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
That's it.
funny.
That could be true.
Oh, interesting. Gotta check that
How
out.
are you guys doing?
Good. Why did I say that? No, I'm not good. Why is it when people ask us how we're doing that we don't tell them honestly how we're doing? Why do we do that?
Lots
Leslie
of
had a-
reasons.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Esther.
No, I was gonna say you had a good answer to that.
I think it's a lot of times we don't want to have to manage other people's responses to us. And I think, Allison, you said that maybe too.
Yes.
It's hard. It can be really hard when you're already trying to process your own whatever's happening for you. And then other people sometimes, I think in an attempt to connect with you, sometimes can make it about themselves, and then you end up managing their response to their and that just is more stress. So sometimes it's just easier to be like, I'm good. Because it can be complicated to go into it all.
And I think it can be shameful too, right? There's a lot of shame around I can't take care of myself. I can't, there's when we're kids, it's a lot of times it's like you need to act a certain way. You need to act right.
Whenever I hear you talk about your childhood, Esther, I feel so grateful that I had the childhood that I did, because I don't identify with those statements at all.
That's amazing. And no, I always think about you and how much self-worth that you have, how much confidence you have. It's really amazing. Why do we gloss over the bad things, So
I think it's like Leslie said, we don't want to get into it, because then we kind of feel like there's also a danger that we'll be dragged down deeper into it if we spend too much of our time thinking and talking about it. Like we almost need to distract ourselves.
Yeah. It's just interesting. Like it's kind of a side topic that we started off with that we're but something to think about.
So last time we talked a lot about difficult situations and leaning into them. And Esther, the insight that you shared with us, I think, is that darkness holds the key to what comes next. So if you don't try and fight it, but you just try and get curious about it, then you can view it as holding a seed for where, what's about to blossom. It holds the key to what's coming next for you. But when you're in that dark place, you need to find an anchor, a foundation that you can build from. And one of those anchors to figure out where to go, where you should go next, what's calling you, is to get clear about what your values are. And so that's why today we'd like to talk more about values and, what are values? Where do they come from? Why are they important? And how can you figure out what your own values are? So these are all the kind of topics we want to explore today. And I am so impressed with you, Esther, because you know what your values are. I think Leslie and
Mm-hmm.
I are like,
Yeah. Yeah, when Esther was asking me, I was like, I'd have to really think about that a little bit because I don't know if I have a ready list. So it's a very, very interesting topic, and I
yes.
think it's exciting to explore.
Yeah. So, Esther, give us some examples of what you mean by values and what you don't mean by values.
Yeah, yeah. So I started doing this work years ago when I don't know if I was working with a coach or how I kind of got into this, but so core values are really you know, in our last season, we talked about this idea of core creative essence, like that everybody comes into this world with sort of this original self, right? So you both have had babies and you know that they're this unique little being, right? And they're each different, right? And so we each have these like kind of personality or deeper self that is a part of us, right? And that we want to express. And so really our values are a part of that. And then the idea is that, throughout our life, we get we get sort of layers put on top of that self, that essence, right? So by conditioning or culture or beliefs. And a lot of times we think that those are our values because people kind of we're good at it, right? So values are different than what you're good at.
So, what's an
And
example of something you're good at? I'm going to ask you the
yeah,
same question too in a minute, Leslie.
yeah.
But, Esther, what's something you're good at that you don't think is a value of yours?
Yeah. So every time I take a personality test, uh, my personality test says, okay, you're responsible. That's number one, right? Um, like the what is that number? What's the number personality test? The one where it goes by numbers?
Like,
Enneagram.
Enneagram. Yeah,
huh,
I think I
I've never done that.
whatever the very responsible one is, I'm it. Like it's like a number 8 or something. Um, even horoscopes, like I'm a Capricorn with a Virgo moon, which means I'm like
Ooh,
a
that's why we
very.
get along so well.
Are you a Virgo? Are you a
Yes,
Virgo?
I'm a
Oh,
Virgo.
I have so many Virgo friends. Yeah. Yeah. It's that,
Funny.
sense of responsibility. So,
Mm.
but that's not something that I enjoy. It's not
Uh-huh.
something that brings me happiness or like, I don't love like creating spreadsheet. Like, I mean, I love it if somebody does it for me. But anyway, it's not something that I really, really enjoy, and that brings me life, right? So
Uh-huh.
it's something that I was praised for, that I was could have put on me, and yeah, it's not my value. So I can share with you my values if you want.
Well, I want to
Yeah.
ask Leslie her answer to the
Mm.
same question before we move
Mm,
on because I think this is
yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I think, Esther and I feel like a lot of times we overlap in a lot of our values and things like that. So I don't mean to just piggyback on the responsible thing, but as you're saying that, I'm like, oh yeah, that's super true for me. And I would probably have said like being good, right? Like making the right choice or doing the responsible thing, the pragmatic thing. I think I can do that really easily. And but I don't necessarily always want to do that. Like I don't want to always be the level-headed, responsible one. Like I think I was always the mom kind of the group of my friends. Like I was the person that would make sure everybody had their purse. And like parents would knew that about me. Like I remember my friend's mom being like, make sure so and so has their purse when you leave the mall because my friend was always leaving her purse behind, right? Like the parents would see, like I always joke that I was born 40. So uh and so it's like I feel like that is natural for me. I could really slip into that role, but like I don't necessarily know if it gives me joy or like I feel
Yes.
great about that. Does that is that kind of what you're
Yes.
asking? Does that sort of align?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's so funny because my mom was always like, you always tell me that you feel older than you. I've always said, I feel older than I am.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel old. I feel old.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I always used to tell her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What
That's
about you,
so funny.
Allison? Do you have
I'm
an answer to that?
I feel like a carbon copy of both of you. So I was the chair of my department for 3 years, some years back. And I feel like I was really good at that job, and I absolutely hated it. It was the worst, and I never want to do it ever again if any of my colleagues are listening. uh,
Oh.
so I feel like I could be responsible, I could be organized. I can listen to people and take action to advocate for them when they're struggling. That was my favorite part of the job, by the way, like listening to people and being in a position to be able to advocate for them when they're struggling. But all the other parts of like just being on top of shit is not, you know, I felt good about doing a good job in that role, but I hated it. It was not my value to be good at that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
So,
maybe that's
yeah.
not even the right way to say what a value could be to be good at
Yeah.
that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see, I think this is a good conversation, but you can see because you can see how when we go to create our goals, so if we're in a dark place, we're trying to figure out maybe tease out what's wrong, what we need to change, what we want to grow into, and we want to kind of create maybe the next step. We want to create goals or step into the next step. You can see how if we are creating goals based on what we're good at or what we think we can do, which a lot of people do, right? They're like, I want, I don't know if that job was kind of your ideal job in your mind. And you're like, I could do that, right? I can do this job. I can make money. That's something that I could do. But do you want to do it? So we want to create goals or dreams based on how we want to feel and what really lights us up. So you're talking about the best part of that job was when you got to help people. So what
Yeah.
was, and that really lit you up. So what was the value
I
there?
think being supportive and being kind to other people. And I don't think I'm always very good at that, actually. But it's a value to me to be supportive and kind for other people.
Yeah.
And actually, that's one thing I think that makes me feel misaligned with my values sometimes is I don't feel like I'm doing a good job at being supportive of other people. And that is one of the reasons why I feel like I'm not, living a dream life. Because when you
Mm,
get too
mm,
distracted by other things in your life and too overwhelmed by everything you need to do or everything
mm.
that's going on with you, you can't um, be kind and thoughtful and
Oh,
supportive of other people in the way you want to be. And
wow.
yeah, it's occurring to me that the reason it feels bad is because it's a value misalignment.
Wow. You know what?
Mm.
Thank you so much for sharing that because
Mhm.
I'm just getting an aha about my husband right now because we always talk about our core values and his is kindness. One of his is kindness. And when he gets so busy in his life that he cannot have that as a core, or he is in the wrong job, that he can't be as kind on a one-on-one basis or kind to me, right? In the way that he
Right.
wants to be.
Yeah.
It feels really bad. And I'm like wanting to cry because I kind of am understanding him now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. It's so that I'm really glad you said that too. And something that's coming up for me when you say that, Allison, is I wonder if that is your life telling you you need to be extend some kindness to yourself, right? Because it's really difficult to be kind to other people or extend more to people when you don't have enough to give yourself. If so much is going on for
Yes.
you, like being in the wrong job or all those things you're talking about with your husband, like it's like this opportunity to go to take stock and be like, why is this hard for me right now? Like, what is there something that
Yeah.
could shift that I can give this to myself and then I might have more to give to other people?
Yeah.
That's
It
beautiful.
always
Yeah.
comes back to RuPaul. If you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love somebody else?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's that idea like you have to
Mm-hmm.
take care of yourself before you could take care of other people. But
Hmm.
actually that's
And
bringing up an interesting point for me is because I think one of my other values is achievement and
mm-hmm.
kindness to other people and being caring and supportive of other people and wanting to achieve things for yourself are kind of in conflict with each other, or they can be.
I don't think so.
No? Well, then
No,
I'm doing it
not at
wrong.
all. No, you're not. I think so. I want to step back a little bit. I think that's a really great point, but I want to step back and say, like, this is a really beautiful conversation, the way that it's going, because it's really pointing out that when we sense that kind of disconnect in our own self, we can turn it on ourselves and say, like, why, what am I doing wrong? And so, like, why am I in this dark place? Why can't I get myself out of it? But it's such a beautiful thing to be able to recognize your values, your core values, and be in that place of discovering, okay, in my next step, when I'm in this place of confusion or stuckness, in my next step, what do I want in order to get closer to that value of kindness? And so we
Yes.
can create that goal of, like, what would be the best way to get me to that value that is so meaningful to me. And so, yeah, I think personally that, your question about those being in conflict is that if you have a value of achievement, and I personally, I see you achieving all the time, and I'm like, whoa, if Allison could do it, I can do it. So you're showing people, your students, your kids, your friends, that achievement is possible. And that is so beautiful, I think, especially as women.
Well, thank you for that. I would like to go back to the basic question because when we were talking before the show, I think Leslie and I were like, what even is a value and how do we find what our values are? So, Esther, I know that you've taught people about how to find their values. Can you help us figure this out?
Yeah, I can. Leslie, did you have a question before what happened in that?
No, I think I was just gonna comment on what you all were talking about, or asked her how you're trying to say like achievement and kindness don't necessarily have to be in opposition. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I was just gonna say, like, also I would guess Allison having, as I'm getting to know you more and know you as a person, like also there's different types of achievement in the way that you achieve something, and I'm gonna guess that you're doing it pretty ethically in that you're not like stepping on people to get yourself further ahead. And that
Mm-hmm.
that is an act of
Mm-hmm.
kindness and sort of in our
Mm-hmm.
culture, it's not always recognized how you can achieve and still be kind, like being kind to the people around you who've lifted you up to help you get there. That's all I was
Right.
gonna say. It
You
does,
can
I
lift
don't,
other people up.
yeah,
You
you can lift other people up and you don't have to put anyone down to succeed yourself. So that's all.
right.
That's really
Thanks.
beautiful. I love that. And the
Yeah.
combination of your values that makes you unique, is really
Yeah, that's a
cool.
good
Yeah.
point, is that,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of us share common values, but it's that cocktail of
Yeah.
the combination of values and how they come together and what that looks like for
Yeah.
you. That's really interesting.
And I think that's a really good point to say, oh, this is one of my values, but actually, I feel bad. I feel bad that this is my value. Like, is this, like, I feel bad that I want this. Like, one of my values is beauty. And, like, sometimes I feel bad that
Why?
I want a beautiful view. I want to be in a beautiful neighborhood. I want to be able to look at beautiful things. Like, I want to buy skincare that's expensive. Or I want to get my hair done. Like what? And I feel that, like, I think it's just, we're taught that, okay, do I really need that? Well, yeah, I kind of do. Like, I kind of fucking need to look at beauty. I actually do,
Uh-huh.
And how do you explain that to somebody,
Right.
who doesn't have
Hmm.
that value? So I think that's a good point too. But yeah, let me talk about, um, I
How
mean,
how to identify your
yeah, how
values.
to, I was just thinking, I probably don't need expensive um, skincare, but I do enjoy it. Okay.
But maybe you do, Esther.
Maybe I do.
Yeah,
I don't
You
maybe
need
you
it.
see.
do.
That's my mentality coming in. Okay, so yeah, so I actually have a free workshop. If anybody's interested, it's free for now. You can always email me if you want to find your core values. But in that workshop, I take you through how to kind of do some free writing around, and by free writing, I mean like stream of consciousness, journaling kind of thing, where you're just stream of consciousness writing about a prompt. And some of the prompts that I give, like one of them is thinking about like your dream future life, right? And what you would be doing every day in your dream life. Um, for me, it would probably be like living somewhere with a view that's beautiful and warm, right? It kind of ties you into like what is important to you. So, what would you be doing every day? Allison would be helping kittens or something. Like, I guess her values kindness. Like, she,
Question. When you're
yeah.
doing this writing assignment, do you have to take into account your actual constraints?
No, please do
No.
not. That
Okay.
is something that we do not want you to do. So this stream of consciousness writing is not logical, right? So you're just writing from it. It really helps you to get to your subconscious, your unconscious desires. And that is what we want to uncover. So you don't want to think, oh, how am I going to get there? Or that's just impossible for me. Like, just throw all that stuff out the window and think about your ideal, dreamy life and write about it. And
Ooh, I
then,
want to know. Pause. I want to.
yeah,
This is not a real pause. This is a pause to think. I want to know what Leslie's ideal
yeah.
life looks
I
like.
know,
I
it
am
makes you
so
curious.
curious.
Why me? I don't know. I'd have to think about that. It's definitely,
All right.
I think beauty is also one of my values. Big shock here. And I think that my environment matters a lot to me. I think my ideal life would be living somewhere that's beautiful, that's calm, that I had access to the things that I love to do, that's slow paced.
I'm
Uh,
just picturing you doing walking meditation in a Japanese garden.
yeah,
Like
Oh,
I'd
I
just.
love
probably love
that.
that. Yeah, so just very
Mm,
like intentional.
Mm,
I'm a much better version of myself when I have less on my plate. So
mm.
like that's the
yeah.
succinct version of that.
Oh my gosh. That is the best quote of today. I'm a much better version of myself when I have less on my plate.
Totally.
Whew.
That is,
That
yeah.
Yeah.
that really resonates with me right now.
Yeah. How about you, Allison? What's your
Yeah. What's
ideal?
yours?
Well, I was picturing like a woman sort of, you can't see what I'm doing, so this all these hand movements that I'm doing right now are irrelevant to our listeners. But just a woman like bounding through this gorgeous like I watched Zootopia again last night, but like this utopian place with this gorgeous lake and trees all around and sunshine, and, but not too hot. Maybe it's like 68 degrees. That would be perfect.
Mm.
But I just, I would love, I have energy in this dream world. I have a kind of energy that I don't currently have. And maybe the energy is coming from getting a great night's sleep and having no sources of stress in my life. Just like, and it's
Mhm.
okay if my kids are there too, but like if they're really annoying, someone else will take care of that
Mhm.
situation.
Yeah.
But
You have help. You have help in
You have
this age. You have
help.
lots
I,
of
Yeah.
oh
endless
my God,
bounty of help.
nannies. I have
Yeah.
like a team of
Like a team.
nannies.
Yeah.
And
Rotating
I
the door.
don't, this is very important. I don't want it to be my husband who's the one taking care of the kids.
Mm.
I want my husband to be like over there with 20 instruments, like just totally into his thing,
Yeah.
creating all this cool music
That's
while
awesome.
I'm bouncing around. I probably have had like 3 beers. Like that's where I'm
Mhm.
at, and it just feels great.
I love I
You just
love how much you can
relax.
dream. You let yourself
Yeah.
dream.
That's
This is
amazing.
it is really amazing because a lot of people have trouble with this one,
Like I
you
did, right?
know?
Like I'm like, oh,
Yeah, it's
I don't know.
hard.
I
It's
need
really
like
hard for a lot of
20 minutes.
people. But that just
I
shows
love it.
you so how Allison was talking about, her childhood versus my childhood. Like she does allow herself to dream.
Yeah, my
And so
mom
yeah. Yeah.
really
Mm.
Yeah.
instilled that in me. And I think that comes from a place of like having a really crappy background. There are different ways that people can go from having a lot of trauma in their childhood. Either they can totally shut down, or they can be like, what kind of adventure are we going to have today? This is
Oh.
amazing.
Oh,
And
I love that.
that's the way my
Oh,
mom,
your
she
mom is
always
amazing.
she always
She's,
wanted to
yeah.
make everything into like a fun
Oh,
adventure, even if we were doing something really shitty. So,
oh, I love that. That
Mm.
is so cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So that just, if you're out there listening to this and you have trouble with this exercise, I'll give you another one, but don't beat up on yourself. It's a lot of us have trouble with this. So yeah. The second exercise that you could do free writing around is just thinking of like a peak, like one or two peak experiences that you have in your life. So, a time when you felt like it was like a really meaningful, powerful, memorable time. Maybe you felt proud of something, or maybe you felt like really yourself, like a lot of travel, like times when I'm traveling, like that comes to my mind. So you can write about, what did you love about the experiences? Why were they special? How did you connect with yourself, and with other people? What were you spending time on? What were the values that you were expressing during this time? I actually got this exercise from Tara Moore. She's a coach, and I really like this exercise. So
what is it for you?
yeah,
So, you mentioned that you would write about travel as one of your peak experiences.
yeah. So travel really ties into my values of freedom and exploration. And so when I'm traveling, I feel most in my body. I feel most like myself. I feel like I can trust my intuition. I feel like I get a lot of my ideas kind of even like when I'm in my car or like moving. Um, and so, if I think about this as one of my peak experiences, just tying it into our last episode of when we're in that dark place, feeling stuck, and we're kind of looking at our values, I can really recognize that where I was living, how, a lot of us during the pandemic, we didn't have that freedom that travel brings us. So that freedom of movement, moving like from one place to the next, or like interacting with people. So my value of like connecting with people. That's another thing. When I'm traveling, I'm connecting with people on like a really great, in a great way. So I realized when I was in that dark place last year that, or this year too, is that I had been ignoring those values. So those values of, and I didn't realize how much movement or traveling, even not even traveling overseas, but like traveling from one place to another during the day. So now that my studio is not in
Huh.
my house, I'm traveling in my car, and it's actually making a huge difference. I'm connecting with other people. I didn't have that connection when I was just home. I had a studio in my home. I wasn't leaving the house. It was really bad. So, yeah, I think the pandemic really made a lot of us kind of go inward and think about, well, what are my values? In that way, what do you guys think? Have you discovered anything about yourself and your values during the past like few years that you didn't know about yourself before?
I think a lot of us have discovered that we value justice. I think when George Floyd was murdered, um, it really highlighted that fact for us, and more people felt like they needed to act more on that value. Um, and so that might be true for some folks who are listening. It was definitely true for me. How about you, Leslie?
Yeah, definitely. Uh, that time was interesting when what you're saying about justice and things like that, kind of highlighting that, and I think in a way that many of us who maybe weren't as dialed into that as we should have been, because I think it was this perfect storm of the world pausing in all the distractions were paused basically, right? Because we couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't, and we were all sort of stuck and consuming everything, like consuming online content, and that was sort of how we were all connected. Um, so that definitely came up for me. I think the pandemic was such an interesting time for me because it was directly piggybacked on top of a time when I was already so pulled out of the world, and I had had nothing but time to sort of sit in my own mind, with all of the health stuff that I was dealing with. So it was very interesting for me how that just kept going. And it's been a very intense 5 years for me. So I think there's just a lot of things that came up for me, and learning. That's why I say going to my dream life of like, I really have had to acknowledge that I have to have a slower, more intentional, less stressful life, because I can't facilitate it physically, and I can't, and or emotionally, but physically I can't go at the speed that the world wants me to go at. So I think that's a lot of what came up for me. I don't know if that's really a value, but I guess intentionality, I don't know, being
Yeah,
intentional.
Yeah, intentional. I think
intentionality.
Mhm.
intentionality is, I know you. I've known you for a while, and I
Yeah.
could see if intentionality is one of your
Yeah, that's a
values.
huge
Yeah.
one that came up for me. And
Mhm.
how
Yep.
that applies to all different
Yeah.
arenas.
It does. So once we recognize our core value, we can see how it applies to our life, and it actually brings some relief, right? It applies to different areas. So like one of my values is exploration. And I used to beat myself up because the responsible part of me was like, why are you spending all this time, number one, traveling, exploration, but because, that value of exploration applies to travel as well, right? But it also applies to like spending time in my studio making art, right? Exploring it applies to me and my husband both have that value. So when we were living in that other house, we couldn't go exploring together. We didn't do it as much. We didn't go exploring together. So it brought our relationship, it put a strain on our relationship. But I would beat myself up for spending too much time in the studio, just exploring all these different things and all these different mediums. And I would really beat myself up until I recognized that that was a value. So it helps us to make time in our life for the things that really light us up, right?
Yeah.
So it's really interesting how once we recognize our values, we can not only just make goals based on those, but also, make time in all these different areas, like you said, Leslie.
So, Esther, you've given us 2 writing exercises that we can do to try and figure out what our values are. First of all, actually, I do have a question about the 2 you've talked about. So, the first one is writing about like your dream life, what that could look like. And then the second one was writing about a peak experience that you've had. Can you say more about once you've done that free writing, how do you like mine it for the information you're trying to get about what your values are?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Let me give you like one other way that you can kind of find your values too.
Okay.
You can think about um, things that you spend most of your money on. You can think about what you do for fun, like what you spend most of your time on. You can think about what you fantasize about or what makes you the most happy or things, things that you do for fun. So those are some other ways. So how I do it is I do free writing or have people in my workshop do this stream of consciousness writing. And then I have you circle the words that you've like repeated or words that stand out to you that, have kind of an emotional resonance with you. And take a look at all those words and then see if you can come up with an overall arching word. So Leslie, you already talked about how these can apply to a lot of different areas in our life, like freedom or exploration or justice. And see if you can come up with a word that kind of encompasses that feeling.
Could fun be the word?
Yeah.
Is that a
Yes.
value?
Yes, that is a val. Oh my gosh, I think that's one of your values, Allison.
Totally.
I do. I love that. Okay, so yeah, absolutely. And then I actually have a list in this. If again, if you want the free workshop, you can email me. And I actually have a list. You can find a list online, I think, too, of words that are core values, and that can give you kind of a little bit more insight.
So maybe we could put that in the show notes, a link to that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the free.
okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to wrap up, we're going to start wrapping up here. Thanks for our sort of listening to our wandering podcast a little bit. But just if you're in a dark place right now, a place where you feel frustrated or stuck, or maybe you don't know what your next step is, remember that those dark times, if you're, even if you're struggling with like depression or, just a dark feeling, that is a beautiful time to look inside and go deeper. Not trying to fix yourself, but just that time of exploration. And it's a great time to look and see, like, what are my core values? And then, from that recognition of who you authentically are, we can start to see what needs to change, and your intuition will help you to guide you to the next step of what wants to come into your life. So that's kind of why we're talking about this. And if you're in a dark place, like, we want to just say, like, we want to recognize that it is difficult, and there's no like one solution to it all. And I really empathize with that as well. Just from everything that we've been through and the struggles that we've been through. So, yeah.
And I just want to tack on to that. If you really are finding yourself in crisis or feeling suicidal, that you can call 988. That's the crisis and suicide hotline.
Thank you, Leslie. Yeah, definitely. If you're struggling, reach out for those who are around you, or for those who can help you. So, yeah. Should we talk about our 4% that we
I think
always
that's
leave?
a great idea.
Great.
And can I make a suggestion that, because this was so fun to think about,
Yeah.
that people either think about or free write on what their like perfect day would look like, or what their ideal
Let's do
situation
that.
would be. Okay.
Yeah, so we always like to leave people with a 4%, just this tiny little thing that you can use to get to the next step. So this is that exercise of, thinking about, imagining, free writing about your ideal life in the future. This could be like 5 or 10 years or 20 years, but where are you? What are you doing every day? And how do you feel? So really getting to that feeling place. And what are you excited about when you wake up in the morning? What are you motivated by? What's motivating you in that scenario? When do you feel like joy and love in that scenario? And what do you feel like is your deepest purpose when you're in that place of your fantasy life? What is your superpower when you're in that space? Like, what are you doing to connect with others and empower other people? And how are you making money in this like new place? Like, what are you doing for your job, in this dream world? Yeah.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
It is fun.
I know it's difficult too, but let yourself go there and enjoy it, and let us know how it
permission.
goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, give yourself permission. I love that.
I might do that right now.
Yes.
I love it.
It really gives us so many clues, to what we really want.
I just think that doing that assignment would just make me happy for the rest of the day. So
Yeah. And I just want to say, once we know our core values, we can start to change in like the smallest little ways, right? So we don't have to plan like an overseas trip if our values is like exploration, right? We can plan to go to the park and like do something really small and just look at the trees, So that is a really beautiful thing, a way to incorporate that dreaming into our life.
I think I know what I would want to be making money doing in my dream life.
Ooh, what's that?
I would be a professional hugger. I love giving hugs. And I missed out on it so much. That was like the hardest part of the pandemic for me, being immunosuppressed. Like, even when other people were hugging, I wasn't. So it's only like recently that I hug anyone that's outside of my family. So like
I want a hug now from you.
Yeah, that's what I would do. Hugging. Because it feels good to get a hug.
does feel
Unless you don't like being touched, then yes, totally get that.
Yeah,
But if you like that, it's Feels really good to have a hug.
Oh, I love you guys.
We love you
I
too.
love you too. Okay.
So fun.
All right.
Well, have a great week, everybody. Yes.
Yes, and don't forget, if you're
Oh.
loving this show, please recommend us to a friend. You can like, you can leave us a review, you can subscribe. Just maybe do one thing to help us reach a bigger audience.
Yes.
Thank you so much,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Flow into Authenticity is hosted by Esther Loopstra, Leslie Blumenstein, and me, Allison Henrich. Our original theme music is by James Wetzel. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share Flow into Authenticity from your favorite podcast app.